Games for income. Never play leapfrog with a unicorn. What is the importance of leapfrog technologies in developing economies? Well-known examples of leapfrog in Africa: cell phone versus landline, drone versus roads, rooftop solar versus grids. Let's look at leapfrog. What does leapfrog mean? To leapfrog is to jump over something. It means not going through the usual process of passing your obstacles one by one, drawing alongside them, and moving ahead. When you jump over something, you never really pass it. You miss it altogether. And when you look at leapfrog technology, that's exactly what it stands to do. Let's look at the example of landlines. If you have a country very developed, great landline infrastructure, and then you've got the advent of cell phones, then you have another country, no landline infrastructure. The old way of doing things would be first get landline, then go to cell phone. But with the technology that you have, you don't need to build a landline network. You can leapfrog it, and everyone can get cell phones and be just as connected as the country with the landline network. Drone versus roads for certain types of deliveries. If your road network is not well developed, you need to go through a process of many years to build up your road network, so you could say get medicine to the furthest part of your country. But if you use drones and skip the roads altogether, you could achieve the same effect at a fraction of the cost and in quicker time. And so it is with rooftop solar versus grids as well. In fact, when you look at leapfrog technology in Africa, besides the normal examples of cell phone versus landline, drones versus roads, and rooftop solar versus grids, another emerging technology that's quite important is Bitcoin. When you look at Bitcoin or blockchain technology, it has the potential to revolutionize payments. It has the potential to make bank branches and physical infrastructure obsolete, physical record-keeping systems obsolete, and it can connect people in an instant. So in terms of financial leapfrog, Bitcoin is something that many industry pundits are saying has the potential to revolutionize technology in Africa. So what are we hoping to achieve with gaming and with leapfrogging? We need to see, is gaming a leapfrog technology in Africa? What does gaming look like in Africa? There's been a large increase in online gaming in Africa, with mobile gaming reaching 35 African countries. The online gaming industry generates $18 billion each year in Africa. Internet penetration, mostly via mobile data, stands at 31%, and mobile device utilization at over 45%. The gaming industry in Africa is predicted to achieve a compound annual growth of 12% between 2020 and 2025. The majority of this growth is likely to be in mobile games. In fact, gaming has taken Africa by storm, and Bitcoin now being embedded, or blockchain now being embedded into games, has the capacity to further revolutionize what games can do in Africa. So is gaming a leapfrog technology? That's what we're going to explore. How can gaming be used to achieve certain societal and social outcomes in the context of economy and finance? Firstly, we need to see, is there a link between games and economic development? In order to play the role of an economic and financial leapfrog technology, games must first have some economic importance and significance. Within the African continent, a study has found that trends within the entertainment and media industry, and of which gaming and esports forms a part, of South Africa, Kenya, Ghana, and Nigeria. As of 2019, the South African gaming and animation industry created 1,225 jobs. The most prominent trend found was that in all 5 territories, revenue of gaming using mobile devices is expected to grow at a continuous rate of between 9 and 24% for the foreseeable future. When you look at the construct of a game and you look at the supply chain of a game, there's animation, there's legal and support services, there's financial services, there's art, there's music, there's software development. Gaming has a wide ecosystem. It has a trickle-down effect to many other sectors in the economy. And most of all, it stimulates spending as well. Gaming is a place where people spend money to enjoy themselves, where they spend money to acquire new games, and it's also a place where businesses are starting to come to advertise their products and to reach their consumers. So clearly, when you look at gaming, gaming and economic development are certainly joined at the hip. Trust. No economic system can exist without trust. So if we're looking at gaming as a leapfrog technology in economics and finance, we really do have to consider the role of trust. Trust is a cornerstone of commerce. Why is trust in games so important? Firstly, no meaningful economic construct can exist without trust. Games have the potential to create an economy free from the widespread inequality that you find in the physical economy. And if gaming economies are devoid of trust, or there are areas where trust could improve, then it's an opportunity to innovate and to change that. The difference between a digital game or a digital economy and a physical economy is that you can iterate and change. So can economies exist in games? They can, because gaming has that element of mutual cooperation. The game is exciting because there are multiple players that while they compete with each other, they also help each other. Their presence makes the game exciting. Trust, cooperation, and mutual reliance are found in games, and it's a lot like the real economy. You need trust and you need cooperation in order to make an economic impact. So definitely when we look at games, we see they do have economies and trust is present. Two sides of the same coin. So what do we know about gaming economies? And how do they compare to real economies? Well, the one thing we know about gaming economies is that the digital assets that form the basis of gaming economies are valuable because they trade on the same two attributes that make anything valuable in the real world. They trade on usefulness and scarcity. What we also know about gaming economies is that people are more likely to accept unequal outcomes as long as everyone starts equally. So gaming economies really have a lot of the similarities of physical economies, but they also hold a promise of perhaps being a little bit fairer, of having a bit more equality to them, of perhaps giving people a chance. The question we need to ask ourselves is, what more can we do in a game than in real life? Let's look at one use case. Let's look at the creative supply chain. So if you have a view of the world going forward of mass automation, of people being displaced from their jobs by robots and by automated processes, then the question is, what will people do to survive? Many experts are of the opinion that the one industry that can withstand an automated world is the creative industry. Why? Because humans are inherently creative. Human beings seek connection with the creative outputs of other human beings, whereas with analytical work, there's no connection required. So the more humans produce creative work, possibly the more they'll be shielded from automation. The problem is, how do you give sustainable creative work? How do you industrialize the creative supply chain? Think back to the point we made about the link between gaming and economic development. Gaming has an economic impact because of its supply chain. What are the inputs? It's animation, it's music, it's design. These are creative inputs. And gaming is growing at a very, very fast rate, as we've seen in the numbers presented earlier. The more people consume games, the more games they consume, the more businesses try and produce games, the more demand there'll be for creative work. The question is, how do you industrialize it? And that's where platforms that allow creative workers in the gig economy to consistently submit their work to game developers or to create digital assets that can be sold in games and transferred through a blockchain. That could be the potential of gaming to create a creative economy. So if people can't find work in an automated world, if analytical and administrative work is no longer available, perhaps gaming offers the opportunity for people to turn to their creative side and to find a thriving economy into which to develop themselves and sell the artifacts of their mind. Gaming as fairness. Now, this is a very, very interesting topic. We've looked at gaming as a leapfrog technology, and we asked, what can gaming leapfrog? And we said gaming and games are great as an economic and financial leapfrog technology. Why? One, because being inherently creative, they can create creative supply chains that people can partake in. This is doable and viable because we've seen there's trust in gaming economies. That basic cornerstone of commerce exists. We now need to ask, is there justice in a gaming economy? So how do you analyze this? There are so many different perceptions of justice. Let's take one theory. Let's take the theory of justice by the philosopher John Rawls. He's put forward a theory of justice and fairness. According to this theory, he states, inequality is just and inequality is fair as long as two principles are realized. The first is the principle of liberty. That is, each person has the inalienable right to his economic property. So the state or any other actor cannot deprive you, rightfully, of what's yours. The second principle is that of equality. Everyone must have access to the same equal opportunities in their environment. So no one should start with an unequal advantage over someone else. And to the extent over time that inequality does get created, then that inequality is fair if it works to the advantage of the poorest in society. So how would a gaming economy look like? So for instance, in a game, if no one can deprive you of your property, you've established the liberty principle. And this is one of the things driving the adoption of blockchain gaming. The fear is that gamers will buy digital assets but be deprived of it by the developers of the game. Blockchain aims to create that trust and that security that the digital assets that you buy in a game are safe on the blockchain and they can be deployed into other games as well. In terms of the equality principle, if everyone starts with the same number of credits, if everyone starts the same game at the same time, then everyone's starting on an equal footing, and it's just skill that gets one person ahead of the other. And when that gap between the players becomes too much, clever design can actually bring the players that are lagging far behind further closer to the leaders, either through redistributing some of the tokens that the leaders have earned, or by giving boosts to those that are lagging behind. So it is possible, at least in a Rawlsian sense, to establish fairness in gaming economies. What about universal basic income? Could you have something such as a universal basic income in games? Who would pay? What are the real-world constraints? So let's start with an introduction to universal basic income. So universal basic income is a widely touted economic idea given as a solution to the widespread unemployment that will be caused in a future automated world. All that UBI says is that every person gets a monthly payment without any conditions to use as they want. They don't have to work for it. They don't have to do anything. By inherently being human, that is their basic income grant to live. The proponents of this theory say that with robots doing the work, it will free human beings to actually reach their full potential because one, they don't have to do mundane work, and two, they don't have to worry about an income. They will have a universal basic income that will then allow them to concentrate on higher order functions. Think of it as a lift up Maslow's hierarchy. The question is, in the real world, who would pay for it? How would it work? How would you distribute it? What if the universal basic income amount is not enough? So again, we ask the question, could you implement universal basic income in games? And why not? It's all there. Going back to the principles of justice from Rawls, you've got an equal starting point, you've got the ability to get ahead according to skill, and you've got the ability to bring forward those that are lagging behind because they have a lack of skill. So the inequality never gets to a point that anyone in the game is uncomfortable with. Why would this work? Well, let's think about a world where there's universal basic income. In such a world, you do tend to lose certain things. You lose the dignity of work. So you're getting a universal basic income, but that satisfaction, that competitive nature of working for what you have is lost. You lose the ability to leverage that income through your own ability. So everyone gets the same universal basic income. It does not matter what your individual strengths and talents are, you all end up on the same level. You get truly global universality of income. But when you distribute UBI through a game, by playing the game to earn your UBI, it can restore that dignity of work because you're doing something. There's a sense of achievement in earning your grant and the ability to use your skill to actually gain more tokens and to leverage what you've started with appeals to the competitive nature inherent in people. So let's recap what we've discussed today. Firstly, what have we said? You need to leapfrog. You need to leapfrog in order to stay ahead, and Africa, being a continent with a young population, with a vibrant, innovative spirit that's shown itself to be an adopter, a fast adopter of technologies, is well placed with no legacy infrastructure to actually adopt the technologies of the future. What does that mean for gaming? When you look at gaming, you can clearly see gaming as an economic construct. Firstly, you've got existing gaming economies. These economies have the basic tenets of commerce embedded in them. You have trust, you have mutual reliance, you have cooperation, and you have assets that are valuable because of usefulness and scarcity. Taking that, you can then ask, well, then how do you apply it to the world going forward? Three ways. Number one, in terms of creative industries. In an increasingly automated world, many experts are saying that creative industries could perhaps stand the best chance of withstanding the onslaught of automation. Games give us the opportunity to industrialize and make available a massive creative industries ecosystem. It gives people the opportunity to sell the products of their mind and their creativity. It's an industrialized, organized supply chain of creatives. So it's not ad hoc. You actually have an industry that is looking for and will consume creatives from the man on the streets. Social equality. As more and more businesses look to gaming economies, both to advertise their products and also to gain information about their consumers and also to transact, gaming economies offer the chance to create social equality. By carefully constructing games according to Rawlsian principles or other principles of distributive justice, games can be created in a way that perhaps creates economies that are more equal and have more social value than physical economies. And in terms of social security, when you can game for income, you can clearly see the day one where people could game to supplement their own social security, or where universal basic income is actually distributed through the ecosystem of a game, allowing people to retain the dignity of work and allowing them to leverage the universal basic income grant by using their skill and retaining their competitive nature. So that's all from this presentation. It was just a small collection of ideas and thoughts on what gaming could mean on a continent that's clearly adopting leapfrog technologies. And as much as we talk about 5G and we speak about Bitcoin and blockchain and cell phone versus landline, mobile money versus physical money, let us not forget the potential of games and gaming as an economic construct. And that's the challenge out there for game developers and for participants in the economic ecosystem is, could gaming be the platform of tomorrow? And how will it make the world different? Can it bring us truly closer to the ideal of a just and fair economic system? Thank you.